Deep beneath the ruins of World War II lie some of the most chilling technological secrets ever conceived by the Third Reich. As Allied forces pushed into Germany in 1945, they stumbled upon discoveries that would haunt historians and scientists for decades. What they found wasn't just advanced, it was terrifying, from experimental aircraft that defied the laws of physics to weapons that could have turned the tide of war. The Nazis were developing technology so revolutionary it seemed decades ahead of its time. Join us as we uncover the secret Nazi technology that could have changed history and the sinister truth behind their desperate race against time. 10. The Horten Flying Wing Program. Among the most unsettling discoveries in Nazi aviation history, the Horten Ho 229 stands as a ghostly reminder of how close Germany came to achieving air superiority. Designed by the Horten brothers Remar and Walter, this jet-powered flying wing was unlike anything the Allies had ever encountered. Its radical design eliminated the traditional fuselage, creating a sleek aerodynamic shape that seemed ripped from science fiction. But what made this aircraft truly terrifying was its stealth capability. Decades before the concept became mainstream, built primarily from plywood and composite materials, the Ho 229 possessed a natural ability to absorb radar waves. Its streamlined form minimized drag, while dual-jet engines promised speeds exceeding 600 miles per hour, fast enough to intercept Allied bombers before they could reach their targets. The Luftwaffe recognized the potential immediately, envisioning a fast fighter bomber that could outmaneuver anything in the sky. Development accelerated frantically in 1944 as Germany's situation grew desperate. Test flights of early prototypes showcased advanced aerodynamics that would later influence modern stealth bombers. Engineers worked around the clock installing twin Juno 004 turbojet engines, the same power plants used in the Me-262 fighter, but resource shortages and relentless Allied bombing disrupted production. Only a handful of prototypes were ever completed and none reached frontline service. When American forces captured an incomplete Ho 229 V3 prototype, they immediately recognized its significance. Today, that airframe rests at the Smithsonian Udvar-Hazy Center, where modern analysis has confirmed its radar scattering properties were genuinely advanced for the era. Experts who tested the design concluded that had it been deployed in numbers, the Ho 229 could have posed a serious threat to Allied bombing campaigns. 9. The V-2 ballistic missile revolution. At the remote coastal facility of Peenem, Germany witnessed the birth of the space age, though few realized it at the time. Led by the brilliant yet controversial Vera von Braun, scientists developed the V-2 rocket, a weapon so advanced it represented a quantum leap in military technology. This wasn't just another bomb, it was the world's first long-range ballistic missile capable of striking targets hundreds of miles away without warning. The V-2 stood nearly 50 feet tall. Powered by liquid oxygen and alcohol, it could reach altitudes of 50 miles before plummeting toward its target at supersonic speeds. No air defense system of the era could intercept it, no radar could provide adequate warning. By the time you heard the explosion, it was already too late. Production began in earnest at underground facilities where thousands of forced laborers toiled under horrific conditions. Each missile required precision engineering with gyroscopic guidance systems and complex fuel pumps that pushed the boundaries of 1940s technology. Though the V-2 caused significant destruction in London and Antwerp, its overall strategic impact was limited by late deployment and high production costs. Each missile cost as much as a bomber but could only carry a single warhead. However, the true terror of the V-2 lay not in its immediate military value but in what it represented. This was humanity's first step toward intercontinental ballistic missiles and space exploration. When the war ended, both American and Soviet teams raced to capture V-2 components. Scientists and technical documents the Cold War missile race and eventually the space race emerged directly from technology pioneered at Peenem. What began as Hitler's vengeance weapon became the foundation for reaching the moon. 8. The secret of heavy water and the atomic race. By 1942, German physicists were locked in a desperate race to unlock the atom's power. Deep in occupied Norway at the Värøk heavy water plant, they had secured a crucial resource for nuclear research. Heavy water served as a moderator in experimental reactors, allowing scientists to sustain nuclear chain reactions without requiring enriched uranium. Allied intelligence recognized the danger immediately. If Germany achieved a functioning atomic reactor, it could lead to devastating new weapons. The Norwegian resistance launched daring sabotage missions against the plant in February 1943. Commandos destroyed key equipment, setting back production. Months later, when the Germans attempted to ship remaining heavy water stocks to Germany, resistance fighters sank the ferry carrying the barrels in Lake Tinso. Meanwhile, in the small German town of Hurlock, physicists including Vera Heisenberg assembled a secret reactor in a brewery cellar converted into an Underground laboratory carved from rock and shielded from air raids, they suspended uranium cubes in heavy water attempting to achieve a self-sustaining chain reaction. Resource constraints and Allied bombing disrupted their work, but by early 1945 they had come disturbingly close. When the U.S. ALSOS mission arrived, they made a chilling discovery: the reactor stood unfinished but intact, its uranium cube still hanging from rods, a silent testament to how narrowly the world had escaped nuclear catastrophe. Allied experts quickly dismantled everything, fearing what might have been had Germany succeeded. Historians debate whether the Nazi nuclear program ever had a realistic chance of producing a bomb, but the mere attempt remains one of World War II's most terrifying what-ifs. 7. The Silverbird space bomber concept. Among the most audacious and frightening proposals of Nazi Germany's technological arsenal, the Silverbird represented a vision so advanced it seemed impossible. Austrian engineer Ian Zanger designed this suborbital bomber in the late 1930s, envisioning a rocket plane that could skip along the upper atmosphere like a stone across water launched from a massive rail sled. The Silverbird would accelerate to incredible speeds before rocketing into the edge of space. There it would follow a series of skipping trajectories using the atmosphere as a brake before releasing its bomb load over a target thousands of miles away. The most chilling aspect: it could theoretically reach the United States. Zanger calculated that his space bomber could strike New York or Washington, D.C. before returning to a base in occupied Europe. No defense system could intercept a vehicle traveling at such altitudes and speeds. The design called for a rocket engine burning coal dust and liquid oxygen with a heat-resistant skin to withstand the friction of atmospheric re-entry. Though it sounds like science fiction, the underlying physics were sound. The concept anticipated modern skip re-entry techniques used by some spacecraft. Fortunately for the Allies, the Silverbird never progressed beyond theoretical studies. The technological challenges were immense, requiring materials and propulsion systems that didn't exist in the 1940s. After the war, Zanger continued his research, eventually contributing to aerospace development in France and Germany. The Silverbird remained a paper project, but it demonstrated how Nazi engineers were thinking decades ahead, imagining weapons that wouldn't become feasible until the space age. 6. Die Glocke, the bell mystery. As the Third Reich crumbled in its final months, whispers emerged of a top-secret project so classified that even high-ranking officials knew little about it. Codenamed Die Glocke, or the bell, this enigmatic device became one of World War II's most controversial and chilling mysteries. According to alleged witnesses and secondary sources, the bell involved rotating cylinders filled with a mysterious substance, possibly mercury or an exotic metal compound. Some accounts described it as an anti-gravity experiment, while others suggested it was related to time manipulation or advanced propulsion. The device supposedly operated in a facility near the Czech border, heavily guarded by SS troops and powered by enormous amounts of electricity. Descriptions varied, but most agreed on certain details. The bell was approximately 9 feet wide and 12 feet high, shaped like a large bell, hence the name. 2 counter-rotating cylinders spun at high speeds inside a ceramic housing filled with a violet glowing substance codenamed Xerox 525. During operation, the device emitted a strange humming sound and produced effects that sickened or killed nearby personnel. Plants and animals exposed to the bell allegedly decomposed rapidly, their tissues breaking down at a molecular level. Test subjects reportedly suffered similar fates, leading to the deaths of several scientists involved in the project. The majority of established historians view the Bell saga with extreme skepticism, citing the lack of concrete documentation. No confirmed blueprints, official records or physical evidence have ever been produced aside from scattered anecdotes and post-war testimonies of questionable reliability. Critics argue the story emerged from a mix of misunderstood conventional research projects, Cold War-era disinformation and sensationalized accounts by UFO enthusiasts. However, some researchers maintain that fragments of real experimentation might have become distorted over time. Germany did pursue research in unconventional fields during the war, including particle physics, experimental propulsion and electromagnetic phenomena, often scattered across multiple secret laboratories. It's possible that Die Glocke represents a conflation of several separate projects merged into one dramatic narrative. Whatever the truth, the bell remains a haunting symbol of Nazi Germany's willingness to pursue any technological advantage, no matter how experimental or dangerous. 5. The Sun Gun orbital weapon. In 1929, German physicist Hermann Oberth proposed a concept that seemed torn from the pages of science fiction: a giant mirror stationed in orbit that could focus sunlight into a devastating heat ray capable of boiling oceans or incinerating entire cities. When the Nazis came to power, they reportedly revived this idea as a potential super weapon codenamed the Sun Gun. The orbital mirror would measure over a mile in diameter, constructed from sodium and positioned 5100 Miles above Earth's surface by focusing reflected sunlight into a concentrated beam. Scientists theorized it could generate temperatures hot enough to ignite any target on the planet's surface. No defense could stop it. No warning would be possible. German engineers even drafted preliminary plans for constructing such a device, though the technological requirements were staggering. The mirror would need to be assembled in space, requiring a launch capability and orbital construction techniques that wouldn't exist for decades. The project demanded advanced rocketry, space stations, and materials that could withstand the harsh environment of space. Despite these obstacles, researchers at Peenham and other facilities continued theoretical work on the sun gun concept. Some historians believe it was seriously considered as a long-term project, while others argue it remained purely speculative, a thought experiment rather than an active weapons program. Allied intelligence discovered documents related to the sun gun after the war, revealing the scope of Nazi ambitions. Even if impractical, the mere fact that German scientists devoted resources to studying such a weapon demonstrates how far they were willing to push technological boundaries. The concept anticipated modern concerns about space-based weapons systems and orbital platforms. Though no sun gun was ever built, the idea influenced post-war science fiction and military planning. Both superpowers would later explore space-based weapons during the Cold War, proving that Nazi Germany's most outlandish ideas sometimes planted seeds that would germinate decades later. For the Land Cruiser P-1000 Rat super heavy tank, Nazi Germany's obsession with bigger and more powerful weapons reached its peak with the Land Cruiser P-1000 Rat, a proposed super heavy tank so massive it defied conventional military logic. Designed in 1942 by Krupps, the Rat would have weighed 1,000 tons, dwarfing any armored vehicle ever conceived. Its main armament consisted of two 280mm naval guns, the same weapons used on Germany's largest warship, supplemented by a 128mm anti-tank gun and multiple smaller weapons. The crew complement would exceed 40 men, operating within a mobile fortress that measured over 100 feet long. Propulsion posed an enormous challenge. Engineers proposed using multiple submarine diesel engines or possibly even a naval power plant to move this behemoth. Its sheer weight meant it couldn't cross bridges. Instead, it would have to ford rivers using a snorkel system similar to submarines, or simply crush through obstacles. Armor plating would reach thicknesses of 9 in on the front, making it virtually impenetrable to any weapon of the era. But the Rat's terrifying specifications also revealed its fatal flaws. Such a massive vehicle would be incredibly slow, probably incapable of exceeding 25 miles per hour. Its weight would destroy roads and make it impossible to transport by rail. Most critically, it would be an easy target for aircraft. A single bombing run could disable or destroy it. Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments, recognized these problems and cancelled the project in 1943. Before any prototype was built, he argued that the resources required to construct a single Rat could produce dozens of conventional tanks with far greater tactical value. Yet the fact that German engineers seriously designed such a vehicle demonstrates the regime's desperation and grandiosity. As the war turned against them, concepts grew increasingly extreme, prioritizing impressive specifications over practical military effectiveness. The Rat never rolled off production lines, but it remains a symbol of Nazi Germany's technological ambition, pushed to absurd and ultimately self-defeating extremes. Today, military historians view it as an example of how not to design armored vehicles, a cautionary tale about letting engineering capabilities outpace strategic thinking. 3. The Fritz X and HS-293 guided missiles. While much attention focuses on rockets and jets, some of Nazi Germany's most effective technological advances came in the form of guided missiles. The Fritz X and HS-293 represented the world's first operational precision-guided munitions weapons that could be steered onto targets after launch, fundamentally changing naval warfare. The Fritz X was essentially a guided armor-piercing bomb dropped from high altitude. It featured a radio control system allowing the bombardier to adjust its trajectory during descent using a small joystick. Fins on the bomb responded to radio signals, enabling course corrections as it fell toward the target. On September 9, 1943, the Fritz X achieved a terrifying milestone when German bombers attacked the Italian fleet. After Italy's surrender, a single Fritz X struck the battleship Roma, penetrating its armor and detonating the magazine. The resulting explosion broke the ship in half, killing over 1,300 sailors, including the fleet commander. This marked the first time a guided weapon had sunk a major warship, demonstrating the devastating potential of precision strike technology. The HS-293 took a different approach. Designed as a glide bomb with a rocket booster, it could be launched from several miles away from the target, giving the attacking aircraft a better chance of survival. The weapon featured the same radio guidance system as the Fritz X, with a bombardier steering it via remote control, a flare in the tail. allowed the operator to track its flight path. Allied ships in the Mediterranean and Atlantic fell victim to these weapons, which proved difficult to counter. Jamming the radio signals became a priority, leading to an early form of electronic warfare as both sides developed countermeasures and countermeasures. Though production numbers remained limited and reliability issues plagued both weapons, they represented a genuine technological breakthrough that foreshadowed modern smart munitions. Had Germany deployed these guided missiles earlier and in larger quantities, they could have inflicted far greater damage on Allied naval operations. The Fritz X and HS-293 demonstrated that sometimes the most dangerous technology isn't the most exotic but rather practical innovations that solve real tactical problems. 2. The wind cannon vortex weapon. Among the strangest and most unsettling discoveries made by Allied forces was a series of experimental weapons that seemed to defy conventional military thinking. One such device was the wind cannon, a weapon designed to shoot powerful vortices of air capable of destroying aircraft. Developed by Dr. Zippo, a scientist obsessed with unconventional weapons, the wind cannon consisted of a large chamber with one curved wall and one flat wall. The curved section held a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen, which when ignited created a massive explosion. This explosion was channeled through a specially designed nozzle that transformed the blast into a concentrated vortex ring traveling at supersonic speeds. Tests conducted at a facility near Hillersleben demonstrated that these air vortices could shatter wooden planks at distances of over 600 feet. The weapon was intended as an anti-aircraft defense, creating invisible walls of turbulent air that would tear apart any plane flying through them. Several prototypes were constructed and tested with varying degrees of success. The largest version measured over 30 feet long and required substantial amounts of fuel for each shot. However, practical limitations quickly became apparent. The vortex dissipated rapidly, losing effectiveness beyond a few hundred yards. Aiming proved difficult since the projectile was invisible and the firing rate was extremely slow, making it impractical against fast-moving aircraft. Despite these shortcomings, the wind cannon represented Nazi Germany's willingness to explore any possible technological advantage, no matter how unconventional. Allied intelligence teams who examined captured prototypes were both impressed and disturbed by the ingenuity involved. The weapon never saw combat deployment, but it joined a catalogue of bizarre experimental systems that included sound cannons, solar-focused heat rays, and other devices that blurred the line between science and science fiction. These projects consumed resources and scientific talent that might have been better spent on conventional weapons, yet they also demonstrated a culture of innovation, albeit one increasingly unmoored from strategic reality. As Germany's situation deteriorated, experimental weapons grew more desperate and outlandish. 1. The America Bomber Program. The most ambitious and potentially war-changing technological project pursued by Nazi Germany was the America Bomber Program, a concerted effort to develop long-range aircraft capable of striking the United States directly from European bases. Hitler, obsessed with the idea of attacking American cities, ordered the development of bombers with unprecedented range and payload capacity. Multiple designs competed for approval, each pushing the boundaries of aviation technology. The Messerschmitt Me 264 represented a conventional approach, a large four-engine bomber with extended wings and additional fuel tanks. Test flights demonstrated it could achieve ranges exceeding 9,000 miles, theoretically sufficient to reach New York and return. However, performance issues and the diversion of resources to fighter production prevented mass manufacturing. The Junkers Ju-390 took gigantism even further. This six-engine behemoth measured over 100 feet long with a wingspan exceeding 160 feet. Only two prototypes were built, with one allegedly conducting a reconnaissance flight that brought it within sight of the American coast, though this claim remains disputed by historians. Had it entered production, the Ju-390 could have carried substantial bomb loads across the Atlantic, but the most radical design came from Horton brothers, who proposed a massive flying wing designated the H-18. This aircraft would have dwarfed even the Ju-390, featuring 8 engines and a wingspan of nearly 140 feet. Its aerodynamic efficiency promised transatlantic range, while its unconventional shape might have confused radar operators. The H-18 never progressed beyond wind tunnel models, but it represented the ultimate expression of the America bomber concept. All these projects shared common challenges: the immense fuel requirements, the need for advanced navigation systems to find targets across thousands of miles of ocean, and the vulnerability of large, slow aircraft to fighter Interception. By 1944 the strategic situation had deteriorated to the point where defending German airspace took priority over offensive operations against America. The America bomber program was quietly shelved, its resources redirected to more immediate needs, yet the mere existence of these programs reveals how Nazi Germany's technological ambitions extended beyond European conquest. They envisioned a capability to project power globally, threatening even the distant United States. Had any of these bombers become operational, the psychological impact alone would have been significant. American cities would have faced the same terror that London and other European cities endured. The America bomber represented the nightmare scenario that drove U.S. involvement in developing long-range bombers and eventually intercontinental ballistic missiles. Which of these secret technologies shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more incredible stories from history.